Hi there, it's your old pal Vacant, the new Wrestling with Regret YouTube champion. Gotta admit, feels pretty good to have this in my possession for the first time. I almost feel bad about having to give this one up tonight, but now that I got this beaut over my shoulder after taking it from a prone, lifeless Steve Miggs the other day, can have it. As the world's most in-demand champion, I do a whole lot of traveling, and I'm online a lot. And whether I'm at home or on the road, I know my online experience is safe, thanks to Surfshark VPN. Surfshark protects my personal data with championship-grade encryption so nobody can steal or sell it. That means hackers can't get to me, and also no targeted ads. Big Tech has no idea I exist. It's almost as if I'm a shadow. Unlock tons of region-locked content on streaming services like Netflix or HBO Max with the help of thousands of servers all over the world. With Surfshark, you're in control, unlike my little brother who is definitely not in control.
Hey there, champ! You mind letting me back in now? It's been a couple of days and I'm getting pretty hungry!
Hey, listen, if I can't eat, you can't either! Take control of your online activity like a champ with Surfshark. Go to the link in the description to download it, and don't forget to use the code WREGRET to get 83% off, plus 3 extra months of service for free. So if you want to find out who took the AEW Championship for me, then go on ahead and watch Brian Zane's Dynamite review. But here's a little spoiler for you. I didn't put anyone over, J-Brone.
A couple of weeks ago here on the Classic Review, I looked at the first SmackDown exclusive pay-per-view, Vengeance 2003. And after watching that and having a pretty good time reliving those memories of 03 and liking that show overall, I kind of remembered where some of those storylines ended up going a few months later in the year. And so I figured, well, as long as I'm on this nostalgia kick, I might as well get to that inevitable conclusion and look at the next ever SmackDown exclusive pay-per-view. I'm talking about No Mercy 2003 from October 19th at the First Mariner Arena in Baltimore, Maryland. This show was nominated by John Araya Garcia and Thomas Fireheart over at patreon.com/wrestlingwithregret. It's a crazy time once again on SmackDown. Brock Lesnar has turned heel, aligned with Mr. McMahon, and has regained the WWE Championship. Meanwhile, old Vince is getting ready to beat the crap out of his daughter on pay-per-view. What a time to be alive. And speaking of which, damn, this opening package is twisted and depressing as hell. Sad violin music with kid stuff and all this crumbled wreckage, this stock audio of a little kid talking and babbling. Like, damn, quit playing with my emotions for this terrible storyline.
You become a disrespectful little bitch.
Dad, you're a silly.
8,500 folks in the Baltimore Arena on this night, 275,000 pay-per-view buys, down a little from the 300,000 the previous year, but down a lot from the 365,000 buys Vengeance got back in July. Michael Cole and Taz, as always, are your intrepid announcers. The opening match for the Cruiserweight Championship as Tajiri defends against Rey Mysterio. What a wild few months Tajiri has had on SmackDown. He was a replacement for Chavo Guerrero when Eddie Guerrero challenged for the tag title. He and Eddie won the belts. Then they lost the belts and Eddie turned on Tajiri and threw him through a windshield. He comes back a couple of months later looking for revenge on Eddie, but then soon after that he transitions to a program with Rey Mysterio over the Cruiserweight title where he turns heel in his pursuit of that, and he eventually wins the belt in a match on SmackDown. Soon after he won the belt, there was a match with he and Jamie Noble, and Nydia got involved and she took a face full of the dreaded Black Mist where she's lost her vision, and soon we'll find out where that angle leads. The match begins with some good back and forth, Rey going after Tajiri's leg. He intercepts Tajiri's handspring and dives onto him on the outside. Tajiri cutting him off by going after the arm. Rey gets worked over but is able to fight up to the corner, hits a tornado DDT. Mysterio makes a big comeback using all his leaping offense. Rey gets launched up, lands on the top rope, hits a beautiful moonsault. Rey hits the 619 and the West Coast pop, but as he goes for the cover, two dudes who appear to be fans try and storm the ring. The distraction allows Tajiri to hit his kick and retain the title. title. I give this one 3.5 stars out of 5. It's a really solid opening matchup here. It's one of my favorites of the night, and it's a really good way to get the crowd riled up for the rest of the show. I just love the fact that these guys had wrestled about 3 or 4 times now in the last month and a half, yet it didn't feel stale to me just yet. I love the way these guys, their styles meshed, and they made things feel a bit different from the previous matches. And also I thought the pace quickening at the end, the story they told and the way they built up the ending, I thought was really well done. As for the two guys who stormed the ring, those were Akio, the future Jimmy Wang Yang, and Sakota, the former Vapor of XWF. Those two were Tajiri's henchmen for a while, and I think it was alluded to that they were supposed to be kind of Yakuza adjacent or members of the Yakuza, but of course never openly said. Josh Matthews backstage catching up with Mr. McMahon, asking how he's feeling about the upcoming father-daughter match, and Vince calling him stupid for asking. Vince ups the ante in the match and says if anyone interferes in their match, they'll be fired. Up next, a grudge match between A-Train and Chris Benoit. Now, back at Vengeance, Benoit was betrayed by his former tag team partner Rhino in that US title tournament matchup. They had a bit of a feud for a while that overlapped with this one with A-Train, and the Rhino feud fizzled out pretty quickly and transitioned mostly to this A-Train one. Now, lately, A-Train's been a real bad boy, doing the bidding for Mr. McMahon, getting some action from Sable in the process, though that part is soon abandoned. He's been beefing with Chris Benoit for weeks and weeks. He basically wants to prove that he can beat Benoit. He actually does beat him in a tag match during this build, but doesn't count for whatever reason. A-Train showing his power by just throwing Benoit around. Benoit tries to chop the big man down, but he just can't do it yet. As Train works Benoit over, commentary does a quick shout out to Stu Hart, who passed away the previous Thursday. Big ol' lift and drop onto the knee. Benoit, now bleeding from the mouth, brings a chair into the ring, picks Benoit up, and drops him right on his head. Oh my God. This is the man who has a well-documented history of concussions and neck surgery, and we're not even going to get into what happens in hindsight with him. This is just a scary proposition for Benoit overall. Benoit somehow keeps going and starts hitting German suplexes. A-Train leveling Benoit, hits the derailer, but Benoit kicks out. A-Train kicking a chair in the corner by accident. Benoit capitalizing, locking in the sharpshooter to win. I give it 3 stars out of 5. It's not a particularly special match, but I think it's one of the best A-Train matches you'll ever find. I think that Benoit did a really good job building him up and making him look like a real monster, real physical threat throughout the match, but oh my God, that neck drop was absolutely terrifying. Backstage, Matt Hardy v. Wunna looking for his MFer Shannon Moore, who's being assaulted by Jon Heidenreich, the newcomer. He's just trying to get signed to WWE, wants to do it for little Johnny. Who is he? Where is he? We never find out. A week or two ago, Heidenreich gave Matt his audition tape for him to give to Stephanie McMahon, but Matt throws it in the trash. Here he's trying to interrogate Shannon about the tape, but Matt tells him it was a best of Shannon Moore tape he threw out. The humble beginnings of Jon Heidenreich, back when he just had a weird imaginary friend and he wasn't apparently sodomizing Michael Cole in a closet reading poetry somewhere. Up next, Hardy taking on the ever-resilient Zach Gowen. Now, Zach's been trying to make a name for himself ever since getting that WWE contract a few months ago, but he's had quite the uphill battle. Of course, he lost to Mr. McMahon at Vengeance, and then there were the times he was damn near murdered by Brock Lesnar. Rough start to say the least. Meanwhile, Matt's been a total dick to Gowen for weeks and weeks, beating him up, costing him matches, feeling that Gowen's treatment in WWE is unfair to him, and that Gowen is basically taking his spot and his hypothetical glory, which leads to this match. Gowen off to a good start, but the MFer Shannon Moore tripping Zach up off the rope. Hardy's all over Gowen here. Big clothesline with a flippy bump. Matt goes for a moonsault, but he gets none of it. Gowen comes back, hits a big front flip off the top to the outside. Matt hitting the side effect, but he can't put Gowen away. Gowen's able to hit a moonsault off the top to win the match. It's his first victory since he and Stephanie beat the Big Show for him to earn his contract. It was an okay match for 5 minutes. You can't really give it much more than that. And it's good to see Zach getting his first official win as an officially contracted star and everything. But I felt really bad for Matt Hardy here because he got absolutely derailed career-wise from this loss. There was this perception that, oh my God, he lost to a one-legged guy. Somebody had to be the first apparently to do it. But if that's the case, and if losing to a one-legged wrestler, clean no less, is so damaging to your career, then why would you even hire Gowen when you know someone's going to have to fall on that sword? Matt soon goes over to Raw, teasing a proposal to Lita. He swerves her to be a heel again, then did really nothing of note for a while until he turned face again to save Lita from Kane the following year. And, well, backstage, Linda McMahon confronting Vince in his locker room. She says she's put up with all his previous transgressions for 37 years, but this match will divide the family for sure. Vince offering a concession, saying that Stephanie can win by pinfall or submission, while Vince can only win by submission. But he says the match is now no holds barred. Linda just throws up her hands and shrugs, as am I, because how much shit are we going to add to this match before bell time? The APA take on the Basham Brothers up next. About a month and a half ago, Bradshaw called Shaniqua, the Basham's dominatrix, a man completely unprovoked. Nice. Soon the two teams had a match that saw Bradshaw hit Shaniqua with the clothesline from hell to write her off for a while. They remind us of this fact to start things off, which should be a dead giveaway. Match starts off very physical. Basham's getting thrown around. Danny and Farouk mess up a jawbreaker. You can hear Farouk yell, "What the fuck?"
Team here in the WWE.
The Dominator is attempted, of course only attempted, but slipped out of. More double teaming on Farouk. The Basham Brothers take turns beating up Ron. Farouk with a spinebuster out of nowhere, and that allows JBL to get the hot tag. Big ass powerbomb, but Doug kicks out. Last calls for both Bashams. Farouk accidentally decks the referee, and all hell's broken loose. The clothesline from hell connects, but then Shaniqua comes back and decks Bradshaw with a lead pipe, and boy, she looks different. Big leg lariat allowing the Bashams to pick up the win. I give it 1.5 stars out of 5. I just really wasn't feeling this one. And I feel there's two different kinds of physical matches in wrestling, where there's the physical, like, oh, Sheamus and Gunther tearing it up. And then there's the physical, like, four guys who don't have the best chemistry as opponents, and they're just kind of hitting each other for a few minutes. That's what this kind of physical was to me. So anyway, what happened to Shaniqua? Where was she gone all this time? Well, Josh Matthews catching up with them in the back, and she explains that the clothesline from hell gave her these new voluptuous breasts with permanent swelling. Well, that was convenient. Shaniqua telling the boys it's time to whip it good. Oh boy. And now it has come down to this. The first ever, the last ever, hopefully, father-daughter I Quit match, as Mr. McMahon takes on the SmackDown GM Stephanie McMahon, and if Vince loses, he must retire. If Stephanie loses, she must be out as general manager. As we saw the last time in the Vengeance review, Vince McMahon has been openly cavorting with Sable while generally making things difficult for his daughter Stephanie. Vince refusing to fire Steph and wants her to quit, but she refuses. Finally, the last straw is when Stephanie announces The Undertaker as the new #1 contender, and so Brock Lesnar's going to have to defend against him with the pay-per-view. Vince threatening Stephanie, saying, "You must rescind this matchup or I'm going to make this father-daughter match," and she stands her ground. So that's how this match is officially made. Then over the next couple of weeks, things get really dark. Linda gets involved as well. Vince talks about how loving of a father he is and how Steph is forcing him to do this to her. He sees himself as a total victim in all this. He sees her as defiant, and he will strike down the face of defiance. He's body slamming Steph. He clotheslines her. We get some very emotional interview segments with Stephanie on the Go Home show. There were a couple of times, like, not only watching this like live as it was happening in 2003, but then watching it again here for this review, or I'm watching the stuff on SmackDown. I have to take a step back every once in a while and say, wait a minute, this is a wrestling show, yeah? What a weird family this is. Stephanie is accompanied to the ring by Linda. Vince accompanied, of course, by Sable. Stephanie goes to the big attack early on, but Vince overpowers her, throwing her hither and yon while occasionally throwing mean looks over at Linda. Sable gets a slap in, but that's got Linda on the chase, which gets a big pop. Cut off by Vince, though. Steph with some kicks, but Vince stops her and gives her a big old clothesline, shades of a couple of weeks ago. The half crab on Steph into a surfboard. Lots and lots of screaming.
There's no one like Mr. McMahon. Copain.
And look at Linda. Could you imagine if...
Of course, he's just like her.
Steph rakes the eyes. Sable goes up to the apron with a lead pipe, and that's the last straw for Linda. Vince grabs her, but he takes a slap. Stephanie is the low blow, and another one with a pipe. Goes to the cover. We get a kick out. Steph with a pipe again, beating the bejesus out of Vince with it, including a massive swing from the second rope. He should be dead by now. There's a cover, though, and we get a rope break. Steph with a bulldog on a cover. Another kick out. Vince finally goozles Steph, throwing her down, decks her with the pipe, choking Stephanie out with the pipe. That leads Linda to throw in the towel. Vince wins. He pie faces his wife. Then they all get together later that week to see Steph marry the man of her dreams. I give it 2.5 stars out of 5. This was a match, it's really like, it's so uncomfortable to watch, but much like the Vince and Zach Gowen match, but even amplified, you can't look away from it. It's so insane. And the commentary, give them credit because they are making constant references in this thing to how insane and tasteless all of this is. There are some entertaining points, and I think Stephanie's comeback is really like, the crowd gets so into it, and I think it really works. But yeah, overall, very uncomfortable to watch. And I must reiterate, what a weird weird family this is. After the match, Cole and Taz have a long chat afterwards saying, "You will never see Stephanie appearing again for family business." Ha! Eventually, both men are just tired and speechless, which is how this part ends. But looking into the future, Stephanie may be out as GM, but hey, Paul Heyman's in soon. That's going to be a fun time. Up next, Kurt Angle taking on John Cena. Well, the Doctor of Thugonomics has been able to get more momentum after his loss to Taker at Vengeance. He won the rematch a few weeks later on SmackDown. It's been pretty much getting mixed up with all sorts of upper echelon stuff in the weeks ever since. He calls himself a new American icon in his never-ending quest for respect, and he wrestles American strong style. Boy, that phrase did not last long for him, did it? He's been beating up Angle a lot lately since Kurt got screwed out of the title. Angle wants a match with him at No Mercy, but not before Kurt has a little fun at Cena's expense, does a fun little rap, and he does some pantomime with a mini Kurt Angle played by none other than Short Sleeve Samson of Midget Wrestling Warriors. We go to the match now. Cena comes to the ring first and he raps. He says, "You don't want to mess with him. He's like a prostitute with herpes." That's kind of a weird cell phone, isn't it? We're getting dueling chants here. Cena getting that babyface momentum for the first time. Angle hits some arm drags and hip tosses and throws up some birds. Angle in control for the first part of this match, but he goes shoulder first into the ring post and Cena takes over. Some big clubbing blows onto Angle. Now he is the one who bleeds out of the mouth. Big trend here tonight. Even more dueling chances as we get that back and forth. Cena with a flying nothing, which Angle counters with a terrible midair dropkick. Cena and Angle fight on the apron. They tease the Germans of death, but Cena fights back with a big DDT on the apron, follows up with that big leg drop right on the back of the head. Angle comes back and hits the German. Cena kicks out. Cena goes to the FU. He hits it, but Kurt still kicks out. Cena grabbing the chain in his corner. Referee stops him, but Cena's got Angle's gold medals. He decks him with those, but Kurt still is able to get up. Another FU attempt is countered. Angle slips into the ankle lock. Cena taps. Kurt wins. I give it 4 stars out of 5. This is a freaking great match. It's my pick for match of the night. I think these two worked really well together here, and it's so cool to watch the meteoric progression of John Cena watching these SmackDowns every week, because it's clear they're putting him in a higher and higher profile position, and he's really holding his own with guys like Kurt Angle and Brock Lesnar and The Undertaker. It's like, which of these things is not like the other in 2003, but it is very obvious they want to see him as a future main eventer, a future babyface too, and they can't ignore it now because those chants for Cena within the match with Angle here were so loud and so powerful. So yeah, it's really cool to go back and see like this time of John Cena, because when these two have matches a few years later, it's not going to be the same vibe. The match quality will not be the same, and the crowd reactions will definitely not be the same. But it's cool to look back here in 03 as John is coming up before he really blows up, where he stands here with Angle. We're going to take things down a bit here with the U.S. Championship match as Eddie Guerrero defends against the Big Show. Now, Eddie has been on a serious roll as of late. We saw in the Vengeance review he beat Chris Benoit to become the new U.S. champion, and soon after that, while he was feuding with John Cena, you've got Chavo Guerrero coming back from injury. Those two immediately win the tag team championships. But this particular angle with the Big Show, well, I guess you could say it's an angle all about shit. First off, Big Show steals Eddie's order of burritos, and he happens to eat one loaded with laxatives, so it's a trap. It plays out in hilarious fashion. 2 weeks later, the Guerreros work together to spray the Big Show with shit. Big Show responds by beating the crap out of Eddie and slamming him on his own car. It's worth pointing out that every time Eddie's been beaten up by the Big Show, Chavo has been noticeably absent here, which is, he's the tag team champion with Eddie, but sometimes he's just gone, and again, sets you up pretty clearly for what's going to happen with these two down the road. Eddie's body showing the effects of last week, covered in bandages, but he's the first to get strikes in the match. Eddie has to use his quickness, but he gets caught, and Show begins to lay into him, stepping on his back and so forth. Eddie using physics to get Show out of the ring, Taz describing it like a telephone pole going over. Eddie distracts the ref to hit Show with a garbage can lid. Eddie going for the legs, trying to outsmart Show, but Show is just too strong. Show sitting on Eddie's back. Cole and Taz can only come up with car similes.
That's like trying to move a mini truck off your back.
Yeah, that's like having like a Toyota sitting on you or something.
Show hits the big chop on Eddie's back, talking a lot of trash, but Eddie fights back, hitting a frog cross body. Eddie goes to the cover, but gets thrown onto the ref. Then Big Show decks poor Nick Patrick with a leg drop. At this point, Eddie's pulling out all the stops, the lying and the cheating and the stealing. He's just hitting with all barrels of Big Show here. Hits him with brass knuckles, hits him with the title belt, hits him with a frog splash. We get kickouts every time. Eddie even takes him to Dick Kick City and drops him with a DDT that's not enough. A double down leads to another kickout, and just when you begin to think to yourself, man, this is starting to drag, Show hits his second choke slam of the match to win and become the new U.S. champ. I give it 2 stars out of 5 here. A rare bad Eddie match on this review show. I think it was a match where I think they could have told the same story in a lot less time, because it felt like the match died a death about halfway through, and by the time it finally ended, even though they accomplished their goal of making show look like unbeatable and making Eddie this permanently sympathetic figure, it just took way too long, and by the end I think the fans were just very tired and sad. Backstage, Josh Matthews catching up with Big Show. Show says he did what he said he was gonna do. He gave him a beating that only a giant could give. You understand? I'm a giant! Which means that nobody can take this title away from him. And they have really sped through this inevitable breakup with Chavo and Eddie, like at a rapid pace here, because like Eddie wins the US title, then bam, Chavo's back, and bam, they win the tag belts, and then all of a sudden Eddie loses the US championship, and later this week he's gonna lose the tag belts with Chavo, and then sooner or later they are gonna break up, but it's all so fast here. Well, at this point I only have one question for Vince McMahon. What did you do to Brock Lesnar, you sick son of a bitch? It's time for the main event, a biker chain match for the WWE Championship as Brock defends against Big Evil, the Undertaker. After Vengeance, Brock turned heel, sold his soul to the devil himself, Mr. McMahon. He was christened the real Brock Lesnar, which meant the Brock Lesnar who was really shitty at solo heel promos. Oh my god, never more in this first run in the company was he more exposed as a performer than he was during this run where he turns heel again. But it's not like Vince McMahon cutting promos for him like Paul Heyman did back in the day. This is just Brock on his own, and Vince is like off in the distance cheering him on. You can do it, Brock, I believe in you. And meanwhile, he's in the ring there dying 1,000 deaths as he's cutting these really bad promos because he has not found his voice yet. He had a match at SummerSlam with Kurt Angle. He lost clean by submission, and his first promo back on SmackDown, he's like, that didn't happen. I didn't tap out. I've never tapped out. It was a fluke. It was a mirage. I didn't tap out. Well, okay, maybe I did, but I'm still a monster. Like, what the fuck? Why would you have him do that? If he didn't do that on his own, why would you write that for him to immediately contradict himself and make him sound like a total goof? You could see in his eyes, he is begging for Paul Heyman. He's telepathically begging the wise man to come back and help him out. To get some heat back, he practically murders Zach Gowen in Zach's hometown in front of his mom, then practically kills him again by pushing a stunt double down the stairs, which apparently, according to Gowen on Twitter a while back, he says the original plan was for him to be F5'd off the SmackDown fist, but logistically they couldn't figure out how to make that work. And then he beats Kurt Angle dirty in an Iron Man match on SmackDown to become the champion once again. Like I mentioned earlier, Stephanie made Undertaker the #1 contender, which then prompted Vince to make their match. Brock says that he's unstoppable. I told you he was bad at this. There's that biker chain on the pole, the old Vince Russo special. Match starts out pretty methodical. Taker working over Lesnar's shoulder, fights his way to the old school, randomly hits a La Magistral cradle and damn near spikes himself. Okay then. They talk about Taker's style and how it's changed as he's gotten older. And I'm like, oh, they said the O word about Undertaker. You can't do that. Taker getting punched drunk as Lesnar continues the assault outside. Taker goes for the chain for the first time all match, but the lights cut out, which leads to nothing at first. Brock bringing steel stairs into the ring and hits a drop toe hold on Taker into them. Back to the outside, Taker hits a freaking pile driver on the steps and Cole yells out, a tombstone? No. Lesnar recovers, hits a low blow, hits the steel stairs to the dome. A kick out, and Lesnar makes a bizarre noise. More back and forth, Lesnar climbs up, but Taker catches him, goes for the last ride, but we get a double down. Taker wants to take Brock to Goozle City, but Lesnar fights out of it. Taker using his MMA skills, the triangle, but Lesnar powerbombs his way out of it. Dragon Sleeper is powered out into an F5, which is a pretty cool move, but Taker gets his foot on the ropes. Lesnar goes to the chain, but Taker chokeslams him off the top. Taker looks to have it won, but then the FBI run in and beat down Taker for a minute. Taker fights him off, then hits Lesnar with the last ride. Oh, fuck me, that bump didn't look good. Taker dives onto Palumbo and Johnny the Bull. Nunzio goes for the chain, but Taker shoves him off. Undertaker finally grabs the biker chain, but then Mr. McMahon shows up and crotches Taker on the top. Lesnar now has the chain, decks Taker with it. The 3 count and the win. Vince skedaddles, and Lesnar retains the belt as we fade to black. I give it 2 stars out of 5. This match was kind of a chore to get through, and it's made even worse by the constant chicanery. It's crazy to think the last match we saw before this, we saw the exact same thing go down, but with the babyface doing all the cheating. Now the heel's doing all the cheating here, so what are we supposed to feel exactly? I cannot believe how much they've reduced Lesnar to this weak, coward character in just a couple of months. Monster? He's not even a manster anymore. They've absolutely ruined him, and I'm not surprised at all he wants to peace out of this company with within 6 months. My final grade for No Mercy 2003 is a C-. It's a big dip in quality from Vengeance back in July. Now, we do complain often that, when a pay-per-view doesn't advance storylines. And we can't complain about that here because, for better or for worse, lots of storylines get advanced. I think there was a couple of good gems on this show match-wise. There was Rey and Tajiri, and then there was, of course, Kurt Angle and John Cena. But besides that, I think the mid-card and the main event were real big letdowns. I think the redundancy in the last 2 matches, both these kind of dark endings to the matches, and of course Vince and Stephanie, that match being as uncomfortable as it was just, kind of a downer pay-per-view. And I walked away from this show with a much different vibe about SmackDown than I did after watching Vengeance a couple weeks ago. But hey, next time on the Classic Pay-Per-View Review, it's going to be October, spooky season, so what better way to celebrate than by looking at some classic Halloween Havoc pay-per-views? What's Sting up to these days in the year 1990 after finally getting the torch passed to him and him being Ric Flair for the championship? We're going to find out with Halloween Havoc 1990. I'm Brian Zane, and I'll see you next time.